call this. All right, welcome everyone. This is our regular planning and zoning meeting, November 13th. We begin at 5:30. And our agenda items, we've already called it to order. So this next little bit, we don't have any public hearings today, right?
Nope.
Okay, this next little bit is just a call for citizens' comments. And since we don't have any public meetings, it can be about anything, correct? That you want to bring to the commission's attention. For awareness of time, we always ask that try to keep it in the 3-minute timeline, but moving forward, does anybody have anything they would like to address to the commission prior to our beginning? And if so, right here, and I'm going to ask you to state your name and just your city of residence.
Mark Steiner, city of residence is Lewiston. I'm speaking to have the current section 37-33 amended. I don't like the amendment that is that has been proposed by staff. Part of it is because of the original problem that I have with it it requires aesthetic issues or aesthetic parts of building that is not the purview of the city or planning and zoning, or rather should not be. There's things in there that may be good ideas, and should be things that should have the force of code or law behind them to force you to do them, especially when it's not a safety issue. The kind of similar on that, seeing the item that was on the agenda. The parks or the recreation areas with apartments, it's a similar thing. If an apartment developer wants to put in a recreation area to sell their apartments, that's great. They should be able to do that. They shouldn't be forced to do it by code. That's just my opinion on matters like that. What the power of code to enforce things or force people's actions should be limited and used with a light hand. So I would recommend modifying 37-33 and kind of stripping out all of the aesthetic requirements and going just to the straightforward requirements of driveway, setbacks, yards that all the other zones, residential zones in Lewiston have. So.
Thank you. Yeah, come on up. State your name, city of residence.
You bet. My name is Ryan Higgins and I actually reside in Clarkston, but I'm a business owner here in Lewiston. So again, my name is Ryan Higgins. I'm with the Higgins team, Coldwell Banker here in Lewiston. I'm here tonight to just briefly touch on the city design guidelines for the smaller lots that Quality Design Homes is applying for a variance on. The Higgins team has had the blessing of representing QDH and selling an average of 22 homes in the LC Valley for about the past 15 years. So that essentially equates to over 300 homes. Post-COVID in the Pacific Northwest, I think we've definitely seen a shortage of affordable homes. In addition to selling QDH homes, our role has been to help determine what the market wants. So QDH and the Higgins team's goal has always been to offer affordable housing. The median price range currently in Lewiston is $265K. The majority of the homes that we build in the area are either at or below that number. So over the past several years, we've developed and refined a certain floor plan that an overwhelming number of buyers have chosen to call home. Features include an open concept vaulted living and kitchen area with the ability to see out the front and rear of the home from the main living area. A covered back patio and a primary suite with a separate walk-in closet from the bathroom, as well as a useful mud laundry room coming in from the garage. So we're here to discuss the variants of the city's design guidelines. These guidelines force builders into a floor plan that lacks all those aforementioned features. Additionally, the guideline forces a large hallway coming from the front door, which is essentially, a lot of wasted space. In real estate, we use a term functional obsolescence. So that's defined as a reduction of usefulness or desirability due to a design feature that cannot be changed. So really what I'm here to talk about is that in following the city's guidelines, that hallway is essentially a complete and total waste of space. It shrinks bedrooms, pretty much shrinks the whole living space. The way the garage has got to be set back of the living area pretty much eliminates sight lines from the house and the majority of features that people have proven to want in our area. So we just hope you'll consider this variance and make it easier for people like me to sell homes in the LC Valley and allow people to purchase exactly what they want to buy. So thanks for your time and consideration.
Okay.
I'm Dan Young from Lewiston. I'm here to talk about 3733 also. The 5 of 8 that's been proposed by city staff. We sent over an email. I think Shannon routed it to all of you.
You're gonna get an opportunity to present those photos and talk about whatever you want to talk about during that line item.
Okay, thank you. I will drop 3733. While I'm here, I will bring up the outdoor recreation space that I just happened to see on the agenda since I was coming tonight. So the Bloom Apartments that are by Potlatch Credit Union. So it's proposed that 5% of the buildable area have some kind of outdoor recreation with grass, trees, parks, benches, picnic tables and whatnot. So that spot where the Bloom apartment is 3 acres. So I just did some rough math. That would be 6,500 square feet that would have to be set aside by that apartment complex to put this outdoor recreation area in. And that apartment building is built, it's full occupancy. There's a waiting list for people that want to move in there. And they don't have any sort of outdoor recreation area. So I was curious if you knocked on the door of every one of the residents that are in those apartments and said, we're gonna put an outdoor recreation area in, but your rent's gonna go up $75 a month. Would you like the outdoor recreation area? So that's what's gonna happen to whoever develops and has to build apartments and put an outdoor area like that, if they have to carve out some of the space for a green space. And that 6,500 square feet is basically the same size as the playground at Airport Park. So the playground at Airport Park would be the same size area that would be set aside for the Bloom Apartments, just for an example, the way that it's written with 5%, which seems absurd to me. That's it. Thanks.
Hello, Jeremy Edwardson, City of Lewiston. Just wanted to add that I think there's a major shortage of affordable housing here in Lewiston. And every regulation and cost that's added to it just makes it worse. So again, the outdoor recreation area, it's a fact that that's going to raise the cost of rent on every future apartment building that's built and decrease the chance that apartment buildings get built in the first place as well. So I don't think that's a great idea, and I don't think the design limitations on the small lot developments is good either. Just any regulation like that should be design choices should be left to the builders and to what the people want. Thank you.
Open podium, anyone? All right, I would like to thank everyone for coming forward. All right, so moving on to the active agenda. I am querying everyone, did you have the opportunity to take a gander at the October 23rd meeting minutes? Anybody note any alterations or changes or corrections needed? No? So I'm open to a motion.
I will make a motion to go ahead and approve the meeting minutes for the October 23rd meeting.
And I will second that.
Gabe, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
You'll abstain, okay. Kathy? Get off mute. Ola.
Messenger.
No, perfect.
Here it is. Still.
Okay, well, we're a little short bodied. But I'm going to,
You can just proceed without her. You still have a quorum.
okay, then we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna go ahead and pass those guys so we can keep moving. Okay, now, item B, preliminary plat, Skyview Estates Phase 4, is that correct? Let's get that backwards. Action item. Oh, damn it, who's that? Kathy again, we're cloning her. The applicant proposes to subdivide approximately 22. Anyway, we're gonna hear all about it from our city engineer, is that correct? City surveyor. I was so close. Okay, take it away.
Commissioners, good evening. Mark Wiggins, City Surveyor. I will be presenting the staff report for the Skyview Estates Phase 4 preliminary plat. Hopefully I can do this without causing problems with the Zoom.
That'll teach you for not showing up.
This is an aerial image of the proposed development. The preliminary plat of the Skyview Estates Phase 4 proposes to plat approximately 22.11 acres of land into 39 development lots. See how those are laid out here. The property is currently vacant and is bordered by Powers Avenue on the north and previous phases of the Skyview Estates development on the west. Additional undeveloped property owned by the applicant borders on the south side and to the east of the agricultural property is, or to the east is agricultural property owned by other parties. The applicant's additional property to the south is still located in the county and outside of the current city limits line. Move to. So next we have a couple of photos of the site. Our first photo is taken from approximately the southwest corner of the proposed subdivision and looks generally northeast. To the east, we can see a fence line that runs along the westerly or the easterly edge of the applicant's proposed or the applicant's property. And the southern edge of the proposed development runs essentially along the right side of the photo as we see here. So that south edge of the development kind of is right over in here and then runs out to this fence line you can see, and then to the north. To the north is Powers Avenue. And the developed properties and residences that we can see here are located on the north side of Powers Avenue. So all of these buildings and everything and this white fence are actually on the north side of Powers Avenue. It's kind of hard to see it, but there's kind of a gray line here that is actually Powers Avenue right in front of those fences. Basically everything you can see in this photo that's on our side of those two fences, the barbed wire over here and the white one over here, is part of this proposed development. On this second photo, I have also taken it from the same location, but I have turned to the left and I'm now looking due north. On the right side of the photo, we can again see that fence on the north side of Powers Avenue. So the kind of the white fence down in here. But right in front of us, we can see the new residences in the east end of the older phases of the Skyview Estates. The street we can see fronting these residences over here is 23rd Street, which will be extended approximately 200 feet to the south as part of the proposed development and will provide a connection to the transportation network for the west end of the development. To an actual copy of the preliminary plat that was presented. And so on the preliminary plat, we can see that the proposed configuration of the 39 lots and the streets that will serve them. All of the proposed lots in the subdivision will be of the standard lot type which have frontage on an improved public street that exceeds the maximum required for the zone width, with the exception of lots 3 and 14, which are these two. So this would be 3 and this would be 14, which are configured as flag lots. And they do meet the requirements of section 37-124 of the zoning code for flag lot development. As we can see from the plat drawing, the proposed street configurations provide a balance of access and accessibility with connections to adjoining unplatted land as required in section 3232D of the subdivision code, while also discouraging through traffic on local streets in accordance with section 3232E of city code. As you can see on the preliminary plat drawing, the proposed street configurations tie into existing Powers Avenue on the north, up here, 23rd Street on the west, here, and provides future connection stubs at the easterly property line here, and to the developer's additional property in the county to the south. And there's actually 3 of those here, here, and then here. So lots of opportunities for connections to additional developments around there. In total, an additional 2,985 lineal feet of public street and associated public utilities will need to be constructed and dedicated to service the completed subdivision. In addition, approximately 1,156 lineal feet of frontage improvements will be required along the portion of Powers Avenue fronting the north side of the proposed subdivision. The developer will extend city sewer mains along existing Powers Avenue and throughout the proposed new public streets. LOID has agreed to provide potable water service for the proposed subdivision conditioned upon the successful annexation of the proposed development into the district and LOID's approval of the designs, construction plans, and constructed improvements of the proposed water distribution infrastructure. Avista Utilities, CenturyLink Lumen, and Sparklight have also confirmed their intent to provide utility service to the proposed development. The subject property was recently annexed and was zoned R2, and the proposed lot configurations comply with the minimum requirements for lots in that zone. The preliminary plat is presented at a scale of 50 feet to the inch when printed at full size, which differs from the 100 feet to the inch standard specified in section 3220A of subdivision code. Because the 50:1 scale provides for better clarity of lines, bearings, and dimensions as specified in Title 50, 1304-1 of Idaho Code, city staff recommends that the 50:1 inch scale be accepted as exceeding the code requirement of the specified 100 feet to the inch scale. With the exception of the noted difference in scale, the preliminary plat complies with the applicable requirements of the City of Lewiston Subdivision Ordinance, City Code, Chapter 32. City staff recommend that the Lewiston Planning and Zoning Commission recommend to the Lewiston City Council approval of the Skyview Estates Phase 4 preliminary plat as presented. And a draft copy of a reasoned statement incorporating information contained in the staff report has been included in the information packet for your consideration. This does conclude my staff report, and I'm available for any questions.
Give me just a quick answer and refresher on frontage improvements. Are we talking just sidewalks, planted trees?
Frontage improvements, basically the requirement is if the street is already basically in service and has access in both directions, they're required to do curb, gutter, sidewalk on the wider streets, which this one would qualify as. And then also provide the asphalt patchback between the existing asphalt surface and the lip of gutter on that curb.
Okay. So just making it all pretty and shiny.
Correct, yeah, finishing out the road.
Okay,
Profile.
thank you for that clarification. Anyone, commissioners? Oh, I'm hearing crickets, so thank you, Mark, I appreciate that. Okay, pretty standard, discussion, thoughts, anyone? Plugged in today? Kathy still there?
No. Just to call it quits.
Okay, well, that's pretty, no fanfare. If in fact no one has any objections or questions, I would be open to a motion to recommend approval of the Skyview Estates Phase 4 preliminary plat And the approval of the reason statement to move you off city council, or at least be drafted, you know?
We'll be happy to make the motion to go ahead and recommend approving the reason statement as written
Mhm.
for the Skyview Estates Phase 4 preliminary plat.
Thank you, Shay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And none opposed. Motion moves forward. Thank you. Okay. Zoning Code Amendment Initiation ZA 0324. This is amendments recommended by the Comprehensive Plan Work Plan Development Committee. And centers around the requirement for an outdoor recreation area to be provided for multi-family developments in residential and mixed-use zones. To add flexibility to uses permitted in the R4 zone, to decrease the maximum allowable building height in the R4 zone, and to add multifamily residential as a conditional use in the C6 zone. So, you wanna?
Yeah.
Anyone?
So this proposal comes out of a committee appointed by the city council to start work on implementing our new comprehensive plan. That committee consists of the mayor, a council member, 3 planning and zoning commission members, and 3 staff members. The proposal would firstly reduce the required minimum lot width for lots in the R3 zone from 60 to 50 feet. It would add a requirement for the provision of outdoor recreation area for multifamily residential development in excess of 10 units. It adds group daycare to the list of uses by right, takes it from the conditional use permit list, move it to the list by right, and then adds additional conditional uses to add flexibility to the uses allowed in the R4 zone. So they're limited commercial uses, and they would be scrutinized through the conditional use permit process. So that's to add flexibility to what you can do in the R4 zone. What else is in here? Then I think the last thing it does is it adds an option for multifamily residential development not on the ground floor of a building in the C6 zone. That adds more opportunity for housing. Generally, the gist of the proposal.
Kind of hitting.
Oh, and I did want to mention too, the Bloom apartment complex on 17th Street, that was required to put in an outdoor recreation area consisting of a pavilion, paved basketball court, and picnic benches. I don't know if they're still there, but it was required to put in and they were there at final inspection.
So is it the one that flanks Southway, or is it on, when you said 17th, it's
I'm talking about the one on 17th Street.
up above?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That's like 200 units.
okay.
Yeah.
So you're saying that the recommendations or the requirements did exist and they were put in?
They did not.
They did not put
They
them
were
in?
required as a condition of approval of the use permit in that case.
Oh.
This proposal would add that as a standard for those projects that are allowed by right. Instead of having to make it a condition of approval during the use permit process.
Oh, I see. I'm gonna confess I'm slightly not as prepared as I would like to be on this one.
Joel, can you kind of give an idea? So I don't know the name of the complex, the one that's up above Regents.
Oh, that's on what's now Fifth.
Yeah,
17th, that's the.
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, that's. Blue.
that's the one you're
All
talking
the way
about.
up the
Okay.
top. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, I was thinking 17th Avenue.
Yeah.
Because from when I was looking at that one from an aerial perspective and trying to kind of, when I was originally looking at this and trying to figure out a calculation of approximately what 5% or so would look at. That was one of the newer complexes that I thought would be a good one to look at. And from what I can see from an aerial standpoint, that 5% does not have to be centrally located or anything like that. It looks like they took a lot of the opportunity to create a lot of that grassy space around the perimeter and everything. And so I think that's where my impression of 5%, you know, because when I think about 5%, if I'm thinking about it in one block, that seems like a lot. But if I'm
If
looking
you're
at it
spreading it out.
as a perimeter and, you know, I would think as a developer, I'd kind of want a little bit of that buffer anyway between parking space and things like that. So I guess my question is, when you're doing the calculation of the 5%, all of that grassy buffer area and everything else calculates into that, correct?
Yeah.
It'll be the developer that's responsible for the maintenance and the care.
Correct.
They had multifamily development, but then instead of renting it out, they sold, like, it was like a duplex or that sort of thing.
Wouldn't apply to duplexes.
10 units or more. That same complex, it looks like it's attached to like walking path. That walking path is included in that, correct?
Something else to compare it to is, in our landscaping requirements for parking lots, we require a certain percentage of landscaping in the parking lots, ranging from 3 to 7%. So this is kind of similar to that.
Also, what struck my attention is, gosh, was it last year that we authorized, I guess, down here, but it's, is that D that comes this way, not Main, right?
The year.
This is D. So the CCI Spear or there was an additional building that came in. Do you guys remember us approving that when they were doing an extension on the development down here?
Where was it?
Oh, yeah.
Who is that?
Dash CA.
Down,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, okay,
Yeah,
so
it's
part
dashed.
of the extension of their building or their footprint included street front with, if you all remember, there was plantings
Yeah.
and benches.
Benches and stuff like that.
And-
Yep, yeah.
And I do know that in our subdivisions, and subdivisions are certainly not apartments and not apartment development, but don't have an objection, as you pointed out, Mo, even the surrounding green space.
Well, and you know, in the parking lot, where the parking lot already has the requirement that you have little islands and buffers and things like that,
For shade or trees.
by putting trees and shrubs and stuff like that in there, you know, I mean, that's adding to that 5%. So, I mean, if you're, you know, 100 feet here and 100 feet there,
Yep, it's gonna cumulatively add up to
it adds up
5%.
pretty quick.
Then you have leeway where you want to put that green space.
And personally, my thought process is I really don't want to get to the stage to where Lewiston, all of our new stuff is starting to look like concrete jungle big city.
So with that in mind, every time it's usually spring when there's trees up in North Forty. Just confess that right now. I've got a little bit of a tree problem and whoever buys my house in 20 years is gonna be. So, every time I drive by, there is a senior facility, large 3-4 story high senior facility across the street.
Yeah.
And what they have is lawn chairs on a pavement for the residents.
Oh, yeah. Like propane, I think.
Yeah.
Is that what it-
Brookdale.
yeah.
Yep,
Very moody.
yeah,
And I think how hot we get, 110, 116.
Yeah.
I know old people love hot, but not pavement hot.
no.
No.
And so that always bothers me when I drive by it. So I guess in my perspective about required green space, it's for 10 or more is a large unit. I don't know how many Bloom has in the single individual buildings. 24 apartments in the single large structures.
Is it two or three? Is it a 2 or 3 story?
Three story,
Okay.
I heard all about it from the guy that lives across the
Oh,
street.
I've only been there once or twice.
Yeah, and so I know that in each subdivision, we ask for some green space. I know that within the city, there's many, many people in the smaller and older neighborhoods that are fighting very hard for their green space. And I do also respect the cost of putting up those mega structures and the need for housing. And I think when we talk about what people want as far as housing, and maybe none of those structures will ever allow pets, but anybody that allows pets really appreciates some green space, if nothing else, not to let their children out in, but
You gotta remember too, even if they don't allow pets under the FHA and ADA, they're required to allow
Yeah.
service animals and emotional support animals.
Yeah, and you have to have some place to take those animals. The parking lot is not going to work.
now, again, I just really kind of rolled back to the one across from the night. And what'd you say the development was, the senior facility? Brookdale, and it just, every time I'm out there and watch those residents trying to
Get some sun.
just bask in fresh air.
And from a design and affordability standpoint, the fact that it can be, I think Mo, you touched on this a little bit too with, you know, if you put a little bit here, a little bit there, and you can design it around your facility versus it all having to be in one place or being required in one specific part of the facility, it can alleviate some of those potential affordability or cost issues. At least that's how it strikes it to me.
Yeah, well, the fact that it includes shrubbery, my favorite word.
Who doesn't love that one?
That was a little off, but
It
okay.
has become my favorite word with us now.
I have different favorites.
But you know, I mean, that's part of what you want when I look at places to move into. You know, when I was still in apartment living stage of my life, that was one of my things is as a mom, I wanted some grass that my kids, you know, I didn't want to always have to take the kids to the park. I wanted to have a little strip of grass where the kids could just go touch earth and maybe, you know, bat a ball around or what have you for a little bit that was not in the middle of the parking lot. You know, so I intentionally looked for that. The place I lived in, North Dakota, had a small little carve out, the way the building was shaped in the back that just had a little fire pit and, you know, a couple of barbecue grills and it, you know, some grass. And it was simple, but it was appealing enough to know that, you know, instead of being in your apartment all the time, there was an outlet for something.
I'm flashing up to, U of I campus.
Yeah.
I've been up at campus for 35 years and I lived in Moscow for a great many of them. There are apartments just behind the A&W on Taylor. And there is not a stretch of grass
Nope.
to be found. Now, luckily, those individual apartments have these little pocket-sized
Decks. Yep.
decks.
And every one of them during the spring and summer has plants and stuff on it.
Well, I just remember I had a friend, I visited often. I had a gal friend I would go play cribbage with.
Yeah.
And obviously it's a walking campus. They're making gorgeous spaces. I think about the area up at Bloom, well, since we've used that one as an example multiple times. I don't know a lot about it, but I know that SCL just put in a big factory going into Moscow and they put in a walk path and
Yeah.
they are in fact landscaping. And so in many ways, the green space, in whatever capacity, it can be grass and a patio and a pergola, you know, but green space, whether it's institutional, whether it's Department of Corrections or whether it's apartments is
Prison has to have a rec area.
it's, well, what I'm saying is it is beneficial for individuals who want fresh air, a little sunshine, or maybe to not go to prison for killing their roommate. You know, just a chance to step out and as we. So we're talking 6,500 square feet, it minimum. For anything, was that?
No.
No,
That was-
5%.
That was just.
5%.
That was just a
That was
number.
the example.
Okay,
Yeah.
so 5%, so what would 5% of a? It does that, is 5% also part for small developments? No, I'm thinking about this subdivision again and how we always put green space in subdivisions. 5%. There are setbacks from the main road,
Yep.
always, just like I'm thinking LCCU, remember they made it pretty around the edges, the one down on 17th.
Yep.
Okay, so across the boards in almost every zone that we have, whether it be commercial.
Hi, Kathy.
Oh,
Hi, I finally figured out how to get on.
whatever noise you're making. So, okay, Kathy, right now we're in the middle of a discussion about an amendment to zone, asking for a 5% green space on any complex, apartment complexes or units that exceed 10 units in a single structure.
Okay, I've got some
Yeah.
paperwork in front of me.
So,
So here's just a little food for thought when you're talking about doing a comparative. Because I'm a math person. 1 acre is 43,560 square feet. 5% of that is 202 square meters. So,
What?
you can't go inches or
Oh,
acres
sorry.
to
Wait, so you said,
figure it out.
Put me for a loop there.
That's way too much
Hold on,
math.
well, if you.
it's 5% of 4,350s, 43,560, person calculator.
43,560.
2,178 square.
Yeah,
Point
2,000.
zero zero five, yeah,
2,000 square feet.
0.005, yeah.
Yeah, that's 2,178 square feet.
And what's the standard from street front to parking curb within a
2,000 square
unit?
feet
5 feet.
5 feet.
is 10 by 20.
For
Yeah.
side yards.
So
If you're looking at an
Yeah.
acre size lot, that's.
Yeah, so that's what I'm talking about,
Landscape
because
buffer.
Mo has pointed out, landscape buffers count within that 5%.
No, no, no.
Right.
They don't.
And you're looking at 20 by
This is
10.
this is meant to be
Yeah.
functional open space,
Functional open space.
not just an area.
Not the green space, so unless I misunderstood what you were saying, the space between the street and the parking curbs does not calculate into the 5%.
That was where I was questioning, but like all your walking paths and all that. But yeah, like Gabe said, so 208 by 208 approximately is an acre, square feet. 208 feet by 208 feet, and the 5% would be 10 by 20.
200, not 2,000.
That doesn't make sense to me.
Or 200 by 10.
That makes more sense.
So 10 feet coming in off of one side, giving you 100 or almost 200 square feet. Your feet. Part of me wants to draw it out and sketch.
Are you talking about 200 square feet altogether? That's only 20 by 20.
2,100.
Pardon?
Approximately 2,100 square feet.
So 20 by 200, oh, 20, okay. 10 by 200,
Sound like an incredible.
2,000, 2,100. 10 by, okay, okay.
So we have the ability to kind of, instead of being on a set number, create a range.
What do you mean as far as a range?
Well, I think Joel indicated that something was between 3% and 7%.
In our parking lot landscaping
Yeah.
requirements, yeah.
Yeah, so our parking lot requirements have a range of 3 to 7.
Based on the size of the parking lot.
Based on the size of the parking
Based on the
lot.
size.
Based on the size of the parking lot. So could we create something similar? To
A minimum
where,
of 3 and a maximum of.
where we
You're
could
gonna have-
create a range?
Yeah, then you've got to decide which percentage applies to how much land area, or which percentage applies to how many apartment units in the development.
You gotta create standards for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
you
I
have to
was
give an
thinking
idea.
about that because even the parking lot on an apartment, it's not one for one, parking and bedroom. There is a, what is it, one
Per
and a
unit.
half for a 2-bedroom apartment or something like that. So there are calculations on how many parking spaces a development needs.
In apartments, it's just 2 per unit, flat,
That's it.
Yep.
It doesn't matter if it's a 3 or 4-bedroom apartment.
flat.
What you're thinking of is only applies to the Normalville area,
I like
or
that.
that partial.
Or any single family zone.
Okay.
So Joel, I have a question. So we're thinking 2,100 square feet is a lot size about 50 by 40. Is that correct? Or a little bit bigger than that? 5%?
I haven't done the math.
Yes, it'd be just slightly larger than that. 50 by 40 is 2,000 square feet.
Yeah, okay. So I was just trying to picture that size in my head.
So my neighbor has about 6,500 square feet lot for a single family home. And it's not a lot of green space. I'm trying to imagine the backyard, not necessarily the front, but the backyard and how much space that might be outside of the parking and outside of the front. You said we're talking about 200 by 10 would make.
Yeah, if you're using an acre,
But none of our
property as a
lots, of
reference.
course, are
So
deeper than 70.
typically what would happen if this is adopted, let's just say a 12-unit complex,
Okay.
would have a 20-foot rear yard setback requirement. And these improvements
Go in then.
would probably just be put in the backyard setback.
Oh,
so it can be included in
In the
the
setback.
setback can be part of that 5%.
Yes.
and the
Okay.
setback's non-negotiable, I don't think, unless.
No, it's a requirement.
It's a
Yeah,
requirement.
Right.
yeah, okay.
So you wouldn't be building apartments in that section anyway,
Correct.
but we'd be worried about the costs of care, the costs of trees. What's the,
Whatever the cost is for whatever they choose to put in there.
okay.
Grass,
Sprinkler
trees,
system,
shade structures, barbecues, horseshoe pits,
Shrubbery.
playground equipment, shrubbery, picnic tables, cost of those kinds
I
of
know.
items. They pick which ones of those that they want.
Okay. Do they have, like, out of the 12 options, they have to pick one?
Doesn't say.
They can mix and match.
Yeah.
You could have grass, trees and shrubbery.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Just
just
grass?
grass.
Or you could have
Bring
a
your own
ball
damn
court
lawn chairs.
Well,
with some shrubbery.
But the setback is from a main functioning street or from
I'm talking about the rear yard.
the rear yard, so off of.
It could be in the
property
front
line.
yard too, but typically they'll put it in the back for privacy.
Yeah, I absolutely hate,
And-
yeah.
And safety away from the street.
No, I'm thinking about that,
Always.
conditional use that we just
Mhm.
recently saw
Yeah.
where there is no back and the whole front is paved.
Yeah,
And I know we have housing problems. I don't know how
Yeah.
desperate I would be to have to live in that.
Yeah.
So if,
Would that include if they were building a complex and they added patios?
green space,
Well, it includes,
If those abutted a grassy area that was part of it, then that could count.
I'm just thinking of all the foreseeables, because I know, I just think of some of the other complexes that I know that are like especially, I like to refer to them as transitional housing. But some of the ones up in my neighborhood where they have, the houses and they have a little bit of a yard, but they also have a really good sized flat patio. And they, you know, everybody has their lawn chairs out on the, you know, I mean, it's not a deck because it's ground floor and it's just concrete, but it's outdoor. To me, recreational space because they're barbecuing out there and they're, you know, so to me. You know, that'd be real easy on the ground floor to add
Right.
a patio and then have your little strip of grass around it, but to me, that's still recreational because. You know,
True.
you're putting basically a picnic table out there and a barbecue and.
I don't know if I'm the only human on the planet that really has feelings about mine, you know, but if I have a ground floor apartment and a patio, it's my patio.
Well,
I
yeah,
don't
that's
want
what I'm
the
saying,
third
but that
floor-
would still count.
Yeah, but I don't want the
Well,
third floor
There is a
residents.
sentence in there that says recreational area shall be accessible to all residents.
See, so that's
But if
where,
they each have their own,
not if you're second, third or fourth floor apartment.
yeah,
Those people don't have any of that.
would depend on how they build.
Yeah, that's where the design would come in.
But
Yeah.
that's exactly where it comes in for, in my opinion, that Taylor Street apartment that I brought up.
Yeah.
The only opportunity that they have outside of the stairwell is the little 2-man.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah.
Okay. So we heard tonight from those who thankfully came down to talk about the city should not determine design functions. I don't think that green space is what I would call a design function. I think it's part of a living space for. But I understand the commentary. We've heard about the cost associated with the loss of that 2,100 square feet of buildable space, but we also have just had Joel point out that there's mandatory setbacks regardless.
And there's maximum lot coverage, which would be the other thing to keep in mind is that you literally can't cover the entire lot of buildings.
Right, so then does it just fall into maintenance? You're gonna need an apartment manager and somebody that mows.
I mean, if you
That's
put in,
called HOAs.
No, not for apartments, love.
No.
yeah,
But I mean,
Oh,
if they
okay.
choose, like he said, you know, they set up a, you know, a concrete patio with a pergola.
depends on that, is not a lot.
No,
All right, so then my question is, can we just do turf?
Yeah.
Just a mow turf.
Yeah.
That's an aesthetic consideration.
Yeah.
you just
Yeah,
gotta,
well, that's design,
you just
but I'm
gotta
saying
vacuum
there's no
occasionally.
maintenance.
Right, but that's a design choice that the developer has the option to do. Unless there's something I'm not understanding, there's nothing that constrains a developer from doing that.
So green space by definition,
Not called green space, though.
it's not called green space.
No.
Recreational
What
area.
we're
Right, oh,
requiring is
okay.
not green space, we're
Yeah.
just requiring
So I'm getting
something.
hung up on that.
So,
then.
yeah, so we're not, this isn't requiring that like it has to be 5% and it's
Has to be
like
grass.
has to be
and has
grass as an example, which then means
Maintenance.
watering, maintenance, lawn mowing,
They
all
could
that
put a
good stuff.
pickleball court in and
Yeah.
it would qualify.
Except it's still required to have a tree.
Not in the middle of the pickleball court.
Makes it
I'm not an
good.
architect, but I'm here to
Depending
tell
on
you.
the size. Yes. Well, I guess it would be.
Okay,
one
okay,
tree
so
around
recreation
that.
area could in fact just be a pergola where people could pull lawn chairs in and barbecue.
Mhm.
Just thinking of examples in Lewiston, so the apartments that are off of Southway, that are next to P1FCU,
There's nothing there.
so were they,
They're horrid looking. Sorry.
but they
They
weren't,
were allowed by right and there's not this currently in code, so no, there was no type of requirement.
so that would be an example of like.
No green
What
space.
it, yes,
no
what it
nothing.
could look like without a
what it
recreational
would
area.
look like.
But there's no huge fence around it, so it is not a preservation. It's coming, of course, from Mother Earth, who has more trees than she knows what to do with.
Once you're done with that, I have some other questions for you pertaining to some of these other changes that is.
Sure,
important for you to
Sure, well,
consider.
we can put that one off to the side if we care to and fire up your questions.
So under section 37-51-6, with the addition of a group daycare, you're removing hospital. And there's only two other areas in Lewiston City Code that by right authorize a hospital. Did you want to remove that as a part of this? Or was the intent to make it in addition to that requirement? And those,
The intent was, the reason it was put in that zone to begin with was because the hospital used to be zoned R4. Now it's not, it's its own special zone, the Normal Hill special planning area mixed use zone.
but in the future, no hospitals by right
Correct,
would be permitted in that zone.
correct. That's the way this is drafted now, yeah.
Is that, if that's the intent, is to just completely remove that?
Yep.
Say that.
And then
Hospitals take up a lot of space. We
Yeah,
want to
and
reserve
they're also high
family zoning for
They're
apartments.
also high
primarily.
use,
Yeah.
or high demand
High
of
demand,
services.
high traffic.
Yeah,
Always outgrowing their space,
This all,
like college.
it's all got kicked around at the committee.
and I remember we talked about that
Yeah.
in terms of the demand that it would put on the community, the type of zone that it would be in. So we did deliberately remove that.
And then on page 5, under section 37-57.2, under sub 23,
It's too many numbers and dashes.
it's listing by right. The use is permitted outright, but the addition to 23 says, and multifamily residential shall be subject to the provisions of the standards of section 37-124.1 of this code. But that is, that doesn't need to be added. I would say, because in 37-124.1, it says where multifamily dwellings are allowed as a use permitted outright or as a conditional use, the following standards shall apply. So you don't need to add that will apply in this instance, because it already states in the code that where it applies, it must be followed. So it's superfluous language.
Where are you talking? I was writing something down, so.
It was 37-57.2 sub 23 that added language. Says, and multifamily residential shall be subject to the provisions of the standards of section 37-124.1 of this code. But that section already states that where multifamily dwellings are permitted outright or as a conditional use, those standards apply. What you're saying. So it's redundant because 23 already says single family, two family, or multifamily residential. Well, that section actually points out that multifamily residential is permitted outright.
Yeah.
So it is a redundancy.
I think we did that on purpose though,
We did,
because people don't normally go to that section.
right.
And so, one, it talks about the parking requirements. 2, it talks about the requirement if you have detached single-family dwellings, that also counts as multifamily. But there is a difference in the amount of square footage required.
Yep.
If you're going that direction, rather than having the, it being like an apartment building. And then if we're adding the outdoor recreation section, then that would also point them to that, because that will not be a new thing that would be required.
Is that language then being added to every other reference where multifamily residential is permitted as a conditional use or outright? You're doing it in this section for that purpose, then you should
It is in most of the other.
probably should do it for every other section for the same purpose.
Well, we can take a look at that.
Yeah, we can verify. I know it is in the R2A.
If that needs to be cleaned up, we can clean it up.
I would have to go look at R2 though, because I don't remember.
See that up above in 37-51, it does have already the directing, section or subset 11, that multifamily dwelling meeting the standards of the 37-124.1. So it does make that reference there.
Reason it's set up the way it is just for administrative purposes because of the way the structure of the different zones are.
Then it might be worth rewording 37-124.1. And not necessarily make it superfluous, but to make it more. Just clarify.
We'll take another look at the way it's structured.
And to Commissioner Anderson's point, where it's in there's section 37-1 sub 11, it says in an R4 zone, the following use and their accessory uses are permitted outright, subject to the provisions of Article 4. Multifamily dwelling meeting the standards of 37-124.1 of this code. Doesn't necessarily say it's subject to those standards, it says it meeting, so. I'm just pointing out that's different language that has different meanings.
So should
That's-
that,
that's
should
what we
11
can-
then be changed to where it says subject to the standards of? For continuity?
Those are things we can clean up before it goes to hearing if we confirm it needs to be cleaned up. All right, we want to get to the point where does the commission want to? Do you agree with these ideas? You know, we can clean up any structure we need to before we go to hearings. We don't need to work through all that tonight.
We've got on this zoning amendment or 324, we have about 4 trigger points. We have the outdoor recreation. Added to residential mixed zones, we have to add flexibility to uses permitting R4 to decrease the maximum allowable building height in R4 and to add multifamily residential as conditional use and I guess, I don't know if I'm necessarily hung up on the 5%. I am not opposed to green space being, or I'm sorry, recreational space being mandated in multi-family development structures. I do appreciate adding flexibility, the uses permitted in the R4. And also decreasing maximum allowable building height in R4. And to add multifamily residential as conditional use in the C6. And that one's a real punch item in my opinion, because we're starting to see.
What was the term for that? The neighborhood commercial? It's kind of what we're looking for, that buffer zone.
Well, that was, what is that, C4?
We already have it in C4.
Yeah, it's
the
already in the
C6.
C4, but we're
Yeah.
putting it
Yeah.
into C6.
C6. So the thought process behind it is right now we have a lot of stuff that is commercial zone.
Yeah,
And then it immediately bounces out into
Right.
R2, like R2, a lot of
Yeah.
R2.
yeah.
So low density residential. And what we're trying to do is open it up so that a lot of, there's a little bit of a buffer zone.
Transition those intensity uses
Yeah,
out away
so,
from the corridor.
you know, people can have an in-home business within that space,
Yeah.
you know, they can
The
have
buffer.
those types of uses, things like the in-home daycare, stuff like that. So it provides a low-level commercial opportunity in some of that residential area that is right abutted up against commercial. So, I mean, to me, one of the biggest things seeing, that we were looking at was, and I loved it, is, opening it up to where instead of having to come in, if you want to open up an in-home daycare, which is highly needed in this valley right now as well, you don't have to go through this whole conditional use permit process. It's a permitted outright. Or if you're a therapist and you want to have an in-home office and you happen to own your home in that zone.
Right.
Now you can do that and it's kind of permitted outright rather than having to go through the whole conditional use permit process.
Right.
So it's just expediting the opportunities for people to kind of create that transitional area off of our commercial. Because if you look at our maps, it literally, it's like commercial, residential.
This is a hard line.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's a very hard line and there's no, and it's not just commercial, residential where it's like multifamily, it's commercial R2, low density
Yeah.
residential.
Yeah. There aren't really any defined borders around it.
And a lot of what we were looking to do with the changes in the lot sizes too. I think that's the one we were looking at, like Sunset Park and that area, the stuff around there where there are lot sizes, they have these, larger homes. And a lot of them want to be able to like split it up. These older folks who want to be able to create a duplex out of it. They can't right now because of the lot size requirements. So to me, I see that as like around the Sunset Park area is one of the neighborhoods we were specifically looking at. That offers an opportunity for additional housing to be created and kind of a revitalization of that neighborhood.
And that's R2 down there?
That is, yeah, right now it's R2.
It breaks my heart to see the great big homes become nothing but apartments. I'll confess that. But I just have a real passion for architectural design and I understand if you own the building and you don't want to live in the building. People aren't buying mansions anymore.
I guess I look at it, and here's the thing though. This is the way I look at it. I don't look at it, we're not saying to people, you need to break up your home. But I'm looking at the couple who is now in their 80s. And they have a 2,500 square foot home and they can't maintain all of it. But they could happily fracture off part of it and have the other half.
Put an apartment in.
And put an apartment in or, turn it into a duplex kind of a thing. Still be able to afford to retain their home now. And have someone else move in to basically help pay the mortgage or what have you. Who's more able to help pay the bills. Because that way we're also not forcing grandma and grandpa who've maybe lived in the home for 50 years. To figure out a way in our current housing market. Where they have to figure out how to downsize.
It's creating multiple avenues for different
here's the other
types of
thing.
uses.
As Gabe brought up during our meetings. Part of this process is they have the option to opt out of this.
Well, that's when we do the rezone, which is not what
The
you
actual,
actually.
yeah, when we do the actual rezone, those homeowners can actually opt out of the rezone.
Yeah, that's a piece that will come later.
Yeah.
Right now, the commission's being asked, do you generally buy into these ideas? And do you want to initiate the process to begin to do this? It will still have to go through the public hearing process. Amendments can still be made to it through that process.
Yeah,
Do you even want to go there?
I think that. I think that the discussion has to certainly happen. We do have to change with the way the world is changing to a certain degree. I will go to my death over the historical areas. But I certainly understand why this discussion is being broached, because we are looking for out of the box, I guess, solutions, housing solutions, and we have to be able to do that. Because Many of the new ones coming in are what we would call affordable.
Well, as a commission, we've already been approached with one of those solutions already. So I think we're gonna see more and more of those types of ideas come down the pike.
I gotcha.
Well, and I think part of, when the whole concept of the recreational area additions came in, part of, like I said earlier, part of the thought process behind that is we don't want to turn into big city high rise, stacked on top of each other, et cetera, et cetera. We want to maintain a feel.
There has to, in my opinion, I don't want it to look like Department of Corrections. I don't want to be part of our city to look like Department of Corrections. I think that part of our charm is the fact that we are a tree city. Part of our charm is green space. Part of our charm is shade when it's 120 degrees outside. But those neighborhoods, Sunset, also being one of the more historic ones, it's not the historic, but it's certainly the era and the architecture that I love. I do think they should be, or at least some thought on being able to develop a small apartment, whether it be an attic apartment or a garage apartment. I get it. It annoys me every time I see one for sale that already has an apartment in it. But this isn't my personal opinion. My personal opinion is that we do have to consider alternative means of housing and affordable housing, whether it be for temporary or caregiver or kids moving in with their aging parents. So I would be open to a motion to recommend approval. Oh, wait a minute, no, initiation, thank you, wrong line. Because you guys are all putting the work in and there's a lot of people involved in the committee that's posed. So the actual motion, let's see, amendments recommended by the comprehensive plan to add outdoor recreation section to R3 zone, to amend sections of the R4 zone, adding flexibility uses permitted, decrease maximum allowable building height, and to add multifamily residential as conditional use for C6. So that is all 4 of those little punch items in one happy motion. And because they are all packaged jointly. Yeah. I think that that's where our public discourse, or at least opinions, have come forward tonight, is picking the one my takeaway is the recreation area in new developments. I don't know that the city needs to fully get out of design. It looks like we've scratched a lot of design.
Yes.
For sure. So part of that, all that strikeout is design details.
I don't think you're looking at the right.
This is what I was given right here, people.
But that's different.
We're on
That's
agenda-
37,
we're on
33.
agenda item B.
Oh, is that the next one?
Yeah.
Jesus, Lord God. All right, it's coming. So, all right, so do we have a motion to move forward on action zoning code ZA 0324? Anyone?
I will make that motion, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Gabe.
And I will second it.
Go Mo. All right. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I look forward to the public hearings. That's sarcasm. just in case anybody was listening. Okay, now on to the one that has all the strikeouts. Here we go. Zoning code amendment workshop for ZA 0424, small lot development standards and amendments. Development standards amendments. And we're gonna have Katie just take it away.
Okay, Katie Hollingshead, assistant planner. Okay, this is gonna be a little bit different than how we normally play this game. As I told the commission at our last meeting, local developer, Dan Young, approached the city council. He asked for amendments to be made to small lot development. City council initiated, much like you guys just did, initiated that code amendment. Joel spent some time and came up with a draft. The draft is in your packets. And Mr. Young has his own draft. And so we are going to let him share with you what his draft is. And then he shared some photos late last night or earlier this morning, so he can go through his photos also. And then staff will talk about what's in our draft versus what's in his draft. And then I've come up with some additional ideas also. That's how we're gonna play this game this time, okay?
You guys.
No, you get to go first.
Multiple drafts.
There you go.
Did I understand that right?
Yeah, so Dan's,
Okay.
Dan's drafted his own and then the city's drafted their own and we're gonna take it between.
Got it, okay. Just wanted to.
Don, will he be able to just open his photos and they'll share? I want us to keep her of my knowledge, so.
Yes, he's the one I kept.
I can scroll through that.
No, it won't let you.
Now
Okay,
you'll have to do each one individually.
okay.
Good.
I'll do my best.
You get what you get.
Right.
So,
Technology.
but so where do they? How does it get back to them? Are they in this? Yeah, so let's get back to this one, and it's the one that's open with Dan's photos.
Got
And I loaded all the ones you sent to
Okay,
Shannon in there.
thank you. I'm Dan Young, Lewiston, and I appreciate you guys seeing me and hearing me on this. I went to a couple council meetings and then I applied for the variance. And we almost got the variance passed, and I actually agree with what you guys did on the variance. According to the standards, you have to pass all of those things. And if I was sitting where you were, I don't think I could have passed the variance either. So the issue at hand is where this came from. So the small lot development standards were put in place back in 2006. And so we've got R2, R2A, we've got these different residential zones, or you could do a PUD. And a PUD says you can do smaller lots. So it's basically its own zone. So the city came up with the R3 small lot development. It's a new zone that you could use to have smaller lots to have a higher density, which I think makes a ton of sense. So in 2013, actually did a small lot development on 23rd Avenue, right next to Regents. I split one lot into 4 using the small lot development standards, and it worked great. So when I went to develop this piece at Airway and 18th, I was encouraged by staff to do the R3 zone, and so I went ahead and did it. And I used the model from homes that we had built over in Clarkston. We built about 20 of these townhome units, so 40 individual houses have been built. And I submitted it like that, and then I got my building permit submitted, and my building permit got kicked back because the garage was not recessed 4 feet behind the front of the house. That standard was put in place in 2021, and shame on me for not reading the standards. I just flat out missed it. So that's where I went to council and went through the variance. And so I've been at this since September. After the last meeting, when the council directed planning and zoning to consider this, I made myself available to staff to consult. And I was not brought in by staff to consult. And so when I got these changes or standards, I was more than frustrated because honestly, I think that the 5 of 8 made the whole thing worse. So I just want to go through these one at a time. So you guys have the 5 of 8, 37-33. So it starts with letter A, lot size, just to make sure we're all on the same page. Do you guys have that? I agree with the lot size. It's black and white, cut and dried. The yards, that addresses front yard setbacks, this is letter B, makes sense. C, building size, fantastic, makes sense. D, detached accessory, I think that's great. And then we get to E where the standards start. Okay, so it says that 5 of 8 of these things can be applied. Okay, so I'm just gonna read this. House facades fronting a street right of way shall have a minimum of 15% window area and shall include at least 2 of the following for a minimum of 20% of the length and or height of the facade. Color change, texture change, building material change. So 2 of those 3, so if we're going for 5 of 8,
One more.
okay, sorry, or D, incorporation of a wall plane projection or recession with the plane projection being a minimum of 1 foot in depth and a minimum height equal to 25% of the height of the wall. Can any of you tell me what D means? Let's just say it's kind of hard to understand. Well, we can agree on that. Okay, so back to A, B, and C, a color change. So the front facade of the house has to have a color change. So what does that mean? Like the door has to be a different color than the front of the house? A texture change. So the siding is a lap siding and then you change the board and bat. Does that meet what that texture change defines? Or a building material change. So you've got siding and then you put brick or stone or whatever. I don't know. It just says those 4 things and you get to pick 2 of the 4 and I can't understand it. And I don't know how staff can enforce it, to be honest. Like, how can a city staff member go out and say, that color change doesn't meet the requirement? Well, I mean, can I take my paintbrush and go like this and paint a different color on the front and say, now there's 2 colors, so there's technically a color change there. Okay, let's keep going. Number 2, primary entrances to homes shall incorporate a covered front porch with 3 of the following building articulation elements as part of any street facing facade: cornices, brackets, overhangs, shutters, bay windows, and window boxes, balconies or other similar features. Okay, you got to get 3 of those on your street facing facade. Okay, what's a cornice? Sure.
I have a question
Yep.
for you. Where are you saying that, finding that it says it has to be 3 out of that? Because I don't see that in city code.
This is the draft change on number 2. Am I reading the wrong spot?
Well, I'm looking at 37-33.
I'm just seeing primary entrances shall incorporate.
He's reading from the draft changes.
Okay.
He's not reading from what is currently in code.
It was the draft that was, okay.
Yeah, there you go.
It's the one
That's
that should be in our packet, right?
it's the one that's got the big draft written on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Are we all on the same one?
What about your draft too?
I haven't addressed that one yet. That's coming.
Oh, that's this one.
The draft is
Okay,
here.
okay.
The one that says draft on it is the one that I'm talking off of right now. So if you don't have that one, that's the one that you need. Do you have another copy of that to share? Doesn't look like.
No, I have that.
Okay.
I just, because you're talking about changes, I thought you were talking about the changes you proposed.
Well, that's why I'm proposing these changes. So I went through this and I tried to say, okay, staff made this draft change. How would I meet this 5 of 8 requirement? So number 2 is brackets, overhang, shutters, bay windows, window box, balcony, or other similar features. So let's use window box. So I'm going to put a window box in. How big does the window box have to be? Does it have to be the length of the window? Does it have to be 12 inches wide? Does it have to have flowers planted in it? After I get approval and the house is got a C of O on it, occupancy, can I take the window box down? So it's gray and ambiguous. It's hard to do as a builder developer, and it's hard for staff to enforce, in my opinion. Number 4, house facades fronting a street right of way shall not have an attached garage that exceeds 70% of the width of the facade. I personally think that one's fantastic. That means that the garage is not going to dominate the house. So the garage can't be bigger than 70%. So I think that one is spot on. A home with attached garage, the garage wall, recessed at least 4 feet. That's the one that got this whole thing started. So this is where my pictures kind of come in, and I'm gonna do my best here. So, let's see. There is a house that meets this requirement. The garage is recessed 4 feet from the front of the house. So I'm still not sure of the why this has even been proposed. But to me, that looks like a military barracks. So the goal or the intent was to make the garage not be the dominant feature of the house. And you've taken the garage out of the picture and created military base housing, which looks very bland to me. So that one meets the code. And this one doesn't meet the code. And that one doesn't meet the code. But got one more. Bear with me. I didn't memorize my numbers. There it is. That one meets the code. Garage or carport is recessed 4 feet from the front of the house. So aesthetically speaking, the roof line of that house looks great and is accepted by this standard. Okay, number 5. Roofs shall have a hip gable mansard roof. I had to look that one up. Minimum of 4 to 12 pitch with 12-inch minimum eaves. Any mansard roof shall incorporate dormers equal to at least 25% of the facade area of the roof. Okay, so there are some flat roof buildings that look cool and contemporary that are being built all over the Western United States. Coeur d'Alene has a bunch of them. So you can't build that according to this. Now, again, you can meet 5 of these 8 standards, but the box is pretty small to meet the 5 of 8. So if somebody wants to do a single slope 3 and 12 pitch that kind of has a contemporary look, not allowed. All parking shall be located at the rear of the lot with alley access. So if you have a front-loaded garage, there's no way you can do that. So my subdivision is front-loaded garage. So it's not 5 of 8, it's 5 of 7 before I even get started because my garages are front-loaded. Number 7, all homes shall have a minimum of 1 dormer. How big is the dormer? Does it have to be, like, it can be 2 feet? Is that a dormer that's on the house in the picture? Would that be considered? So again, it's gray and ambiguous. I don't know how a builder developer would do that, how a staff member could enforce it. And then number 8, each lot shall have a minimum of 1 tree planted by the developer with automatic irrigation in the front yard. So the small lot standards are 40 feet. You can go all the way down to 40 feet. And with the 70% garage, with the 70% garage, you only have 20 plus or minus feet, 16 to be exact, of grass area. So when you run your water and sewer to the house, the water and sewer by code have to be separated 10 feet. So now you got a driveway, you got a water line, you got a sewer line, and you can plant a tree. So where are you going to plant a tree? And what kind of tree are you going to plant? And does the tree have to be there after the C of O? So can I dig a hole and put the tree in the ground, get the C of O, and then pick it up and take it to the next lot? I mean, how is that enforceable from a long-term perspective? So that is my argument against the 5 of 8. I don't see how any of those things make any sense. So what I did is I just took these same standards and I rewrote it And I included the vehicular, the access from the rear of the structure, so the setback can be less. I like the 70% width of the facade, so the garage can't be bigger than the house, basically. And the rest of the standards stay the same. So according to R2, R2A, the lot sizes are the lot sizes. And according to R3, it's right here, the lot sizes are all spelled out. And you can't cover more than a certain percentage of the lot. So the question or challenge that I have for the staff and for the Planning and Zoning Commission is the staff members that are drafting this. How many houses have you guys built and sold? So what I'm doing is market driven. So if I build something that looks like garbage and people don't want to buy it, I'm not going to be able to sell houses. I have to bring a product to market that is desirable for people to look at and live in. And as my friend stated earlier, I've done it 300 times in the city of Lewiston. I've done a dozen subdivisions. So I have market knowledge that allows me to design houses that people want to buy and live in. And so to put any developer, any builder in this kind of a box, it just doesn't make sense, in my opinion. Why put that small of a box when we're trying to get more housing, right? We know we have a housing shortage. And so to do these things, it's going to cost more money. And in my opinion, I have a hard time selling that because I don't think the general market likes the way that house looks. But I do think that the general market likes the way that house looks. That's what I want to build.
Question?
Yes.
Dan, does that house design right there meet the 15% window area?
Maybe. I'm not sure.
And does it fall within the less than 70% garage area?
Yes, actually, it would meet the 15% window area because we put glass on the garage and we've got a big 6050 by that front door. So we've met the 15% requirement.
Okay. Obviously, this one, in my opinion, you have built experience, does include texture change, color change. I can see building material change in that one. So I think that meets that standard pretty easily. And my personal impression from a construction standpoint, made the roof line on that looks just fine.
But the garage is not recessed.
Yeah,
I
and
can't-
I agree with you on that one, having spent some serious time on
I
military
can't plant a
bases.
tree because I got a water and sewer line. So you see that little wall in the middle?
Mhm.
That's a separation wall right there. So I would have to plant a tree on both of those. So the grass area right there, the water line's running right there and the sewer line's running right there. So where do I plant a tree?
Knocking out the tree requirement, if instead of 3 of the 5, or 8, if it were knocked down to 2, although quite honestly, from a technological standpoint to a certain extent, I would consider, I don't know, I think the dormer thing's a little crazy, but I'd almost say the front of the garage is almost a dormer.
That's that little reset, like the elevated part of the roof, right? Okay, all right, just.
It's the, often in the older homes, they had windows because there was second floor
Yeah, it
living.
was, yeah, okay, all right,
Katie's gonna show
Yeah,
okay.
representation.
We're
of
gonna go
all that
over
stuff.
examples of what all those things mean.
I don't know, I'm looking at it too, if I were a purchaser. I would rather see this.
So that's market driven.
Exactly.
So if I build junk, people don't buy it and live in it. So and you know, I'm backtracking, but that whole, and I'll do the public comment thing. But if you build an apartment building and it has no green space, people don't want to live in it. So you better build an apartment that has green space. But to mandate that you have to do a certain percentage, if you have challenges on that lot and you're tight on your budget in certain places, and you can only get 8%, or you can only get 4% instead of 5%, why does it have to be mandated? Why can't the builder go build that apartment building? And if it looks like garbage, don't build it.
We're outside the scope of the current agenda item.
I apologize.
Okay, thank you.
I guess I'm also looking at number 2. And then I'm just thinking, I don't know, I guess my question really becomes the 3 of the following. I think as long as you have a covered front porch area. To me, you know, having the overhang. That's. Seems like it's part of the obvious. I think that should be sufficient.
Well, the rest is temporary. A shutter
Yeah,
can be
I'm
taken
just
off.
Looking at it from a homeowner's perspective, anything that's added to that. That I didn't want added to that as part of the design with my builder. I'd probably look at it as maintenance and tear it off anyway.
So why does the staff feel so strongly about putting this in the language?
Well, one, I think they're gonna address that here in a minute. But I have a question, again, you know,
Fire away.
yeah, trees,
Yep.
and we're really hot around here. So you're telling me that you can't put trees in. Can you put a hedge down the middle so that I can draw my mind line between me and my neighbor?
Absolutely. And I've had people do that. But it's not in code.
No.
That's your yard,
So-
and if you want to do it, you go do it.
So, no, so you're pointing out water lines, you're telling us that you know, if we have a tree planting mandate, you can't do it on that lot.
Correct.
Why can't it be in front of the garage on each side?
Well, you
Like
got a
for-
water line and a sewer line there, so, you know, over time, the roots of that tree are gonna go down and grab onto that water line and sewer line and create problems.
And if you, not challenging, but in one of the displays, because I have no problem personally having the garages forward.
2 separate ones.
But I would have the garage, for me,
Oh, I see.
my
Okay.
neighbor that I share a wall with, I would rather have 2 garage walls next to each other than I would the neighbor's screaming 2-year-old.
So you don't have to buy this property. So here's what we did. I triple built the center wall. And so we built the center wall. It's got insulation and sheetrock on both sides. And then I built a wall on the other side and a wall on the other side with insulation and sheetrock. And I had a homeowner say that his neighbors listened to the TV so loud that he could hear it when he pulled into the driveway. And he went inside his house and he can't hear their TV.
Yeah, and I wasn't actually, that's not why I was referencing, it wasn't noise. It
Oh.
was about if the garages were together, could you plant on the outside of the garages?
Maybe, but you still gotta run water, sewer and power into the house. So
Yeah, I
we
got that,
we run the power and the gas right here
gotcha.
and the water and sewer are there. So it's only 40 feet wide. And if you've got a 24-foot wide driveway,
Gotcha.
you only got 16 feet to
Yeah.
run power, water and sewer.
And technically that theoretically is a double car garage or a single?
No, that's a 24-foot wide, 18-foot. Yeah, that's a large garage door.
Unless you have a really manly truck.
Actually, it will fit.
That's the propensity around.
Probably
here,
fit.
see.
That's a 24 by 24 garage. A full-size F-150 will fit in it.
Say.
And the trailer, sorry, honey, you're gonna have to keep your car out front.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
The boat.
Yeah.
So you've really brought forward some valid points, Dan, and even in your last presentation, I've never had a problem with garage out front. But I would like our city staff the opportunity to discuss the whys
Okay.
behind. Yes.
One final closing thought. So the way that I rewrote this, and that's what Shannon emailed to you guys,
Mhm.
is all of the lot size, all of that stuff stays the same. And then when it gets down to standards, 1 detached carport, so number 1 works, vehicular access provided from the rear of the lot And except on a flag lot, house facades fronting shall not have an attached garage that exceeds 70%. So we're getting away from that garage dominance.
Yeah.
And that's what I would encourage the Planning and Zoning Commission to push forward to the staff.
Okay.
Any other questions for me?
Commissioner? I think we're ready for Katie.
Thank you guys again for letting me go outside the box.
Madam Chair,
Oh, yes, sir.
so I'm just gonna make a couple of observations first, and then Katie's gonna go into some details.
Please.
The first thing I want the commission to keep in mind is small lot development is a choice of the developer. So they have to choose to want to do the small lot development. They don't have to do small lot development. The second thing I want to point out is most of what's in the staff draft is already in the code. What's currently in the code requires the developer to meet 6 design standards. This staff draft bumps up it changes it to a choice. You don't have to meet all 6. Now you only have to meet 5. And we up the list to 8, and we've got one more we're gonna add, so it's gonna be 9 to choose from.
So 5 of the 9.
Yes. So right now, all 6 are required.
Okay.
Staff proposal would only require 5.
So are these, so you're saying these are already in code,
Yep.
they're just in a different place?
No,
No.
they're right there. And all 6 are required.
That's the
code I've been trying to
get changed from the start.
The portions
recess.
portions in black are the existing. And so this is in legislative format, so anything with a strike through is proposed to be removed, whereas
Right, okay.
underline is proposed to
So-
be added. No,
Changes it to a choice. And fewer have to be met of a longer list.
This is just the understanding the history of the small lot development. So these have certain standards for the facade, and that type of thing, the ones he went through. But I noticed for like R1, R3, we don't have requirements like for the color change or for the texture change.
That's correct.
Is there reasons
This-
why we don't?
Because small lot development is not a zone. It's an option developer can choose to get such small lots.
Is there a reasoning why we have those?
Yes, can I go?
Yeah, knock it out, Katie.
Super. So some background on small lot development. So small lot development was put into the code as an alternative to planned unit developments. So planned unit developments, like Dan had mentioned before, is a design your zone. And we have a lot of developers who, prior to us making these changes to small lot development in 21, and that came in front of this body and then went in front of city council. We're utilizing the planned unit development process to be able to get smaller lots. The caveat to getting those smaller lots, because planned unit developments are a contractual agreement with the city, so there are some gives and some takes. So usually they're asking for certain standards to be lessened or waived or whatever. And so then they, in exchange, do additional things. So, for example, you would get a smaller lot than what was allowed by a regular zone, but you might have design standards, or you might have a required tree, which a lot of our planned unit developments have, or you might have something else that was part of that negotiation to get whatever standard you wanted waived, the developer has to have waived. You have something that you're kind of giving instead. So the planned unit development process is a longer process. It's very similar to a rezone. So it takes about 3 months because you're doing a double public hearing, one here, one in front of council. There's 3 readings of an ordinance. You know, there's additional steps that are required by law. We adjusted, so originally small lot development was tied more closely to subdivisions, and so you were required to do a certain number of lots. There were some other things in there that were kind of making it so that developers were not utilizing it and were utilizing that planned unit development process instead. So at that time, in like late 2020, a couple of developers had come in, and I specifically asked the question at the counter, why aren't you using small lot development? And they're like, oh, well, this, and this. I want to be able to do this, and this. So when we brought it in front of this body, the Planning and Zoning Commission, we presented it in a similar fashion to the planned unit development, including the design standards, and said, what do you guys think? And the commission at that time liked the idea of design standards to create a neighborhood feel on very tiny lots. You know, the lots can be as skinny as 40 feet wide, and they can be as small as 4,000 feet. And design standards were intended to make it so it did not feel like a bunch of tiny boxes in a row. So that was the intent back then. It went through several iterations in front of this body before it went to a public hearing here and a public hearing at the city council. We did not receive a lot of testimony on it. The commission spent quite a bit of time kind of fiddling with the different pieces to have what they wanted included so that, again, you develop a nice neighborhood feel. So what I have put together tonight, so Joel did this original draft. I have put together some examples. So I have similar photos to what Dan has, just with some additional details, really. So this picture is the first place small lot development was done in the city. So this is a block of houses that's over on 16th Avenue, next to the Social Security Administration office. So 3 of these were built in between 2008 and 2010. So this was before small lot development standards were actually, like the design part was actually in place. And we looked at these and the commission looked at these and decided that some of those things that this developer had done on those 3 houses were of interest to them to continue on with. So things such as the porch, a tree, etc. So for example, this particular house is on a 40-foot wide lot. It's on a 4,000 square foot lot. This lot has it's not truly an alley, it's a shared access driveway. So all of them are rear loading homes, so their garages sit behind them. But for the commission's knowledge, this lot is 40 feet wide. The house is 30 feet wide. And so then again, like I said, the garage is behind it. This is another one, so that's like next door in that same block, but this one was built in 2022 under the current small lot development standards. So again, you can see it has a little porch on it. It's got its trees, change in material. You can see the difference in the direction that the boards are running. It's got the colors, whatever. So again, 40-foot wide lot, 30-foot wide house, shared access driveway in the back. This is a small lot development home. The commission approved this small lot development at the beginning of this year. And so this is one of the first homes that was built. So this is an attached home. The other 2 were detached single family dwellings. So this is what's called an attached. Frequently people just call them duplexes, but they're not, like Dan talked about the wall that he builds in between his units. It becomes an actual property line wall. So the property line goes in between those garages. So it was built to the small lot development standards that are currently in code. So in this particular case, each of these lots is 50 feet wide. Each of the homes is 42 feet wide. And the garage facade is 20 feet wide, or 47.6% of the facade, because we're talking about the 70%. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples of different places where similar style of homes have been built, not necessarily to small lot development standards, but just showing you what different facade lengths look like. So these were actually built as duplexes in 2000, and then they were condoized, which means the property owner owns walls in. So so this lot in total is 85 feet. So again, split that down the middle. Each side of this duplex is 38 feet wide. And the garage is 20 feet of that facade, or 52.6%. So this is, an example of the garages touching, and then and these do have little porches on the house portion of them. And then in another example, this is a condo that was built in 1994. So this is one where it is just garage facing and you don't even see the actual entrance to the home. You can see on this neighboring property that it's behind here. So you can see this guy's doors over here. So again, total lot width is 85 feet. Total dwelling is 64 feet. And then the garage is 22 feet. So, you split. So that 22 feet, if you're splitting that sucker down the middle, is 68.75. So this would be like if you kept that 70% garage facade, this would kind of be close to your maximum for how much garage versus house you might have. Just as an example. And then this is a home that was built, again, an attached home built in 2020. This is up in the Orchards. And this is in a PUD, so this has a very, very small lot. So the total width for both sides is 70 feet, so 35 feet to a side for the lot itself. And then the total building width is 60 feet or 30 feet to a side. The garage face is 20 feet, 5 inches, 5.58 inches, which is 68.22% of the facade. And again, this is a similar situation where the entrance is on the side and it juts out a little bit. So in the packet, so this is the ideas that were presented in staff's draft amendment. Like Joel said, all of these are currently in the code. And then the idea would be that you would amend the code so that it was a pick from the grocery list of items, right? So that would be one way to do it. You could also just eliminate items. You could do it that way. And then we'll go through some other options. So, and that first part where it talked about like, do you have a gabled roof? Do you have a mansard roof? Do you have an eave? Do you have a bracket? All those different things. So this kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of what those different things are. Like eave is the part of the roof that overhangs. A gable is kind of the traditional kind of triangle one. A mansard roof has like a really, really low pitched peak and then has a secondary roof that like wraps around. If it was me personally, I don't know that I would include that particular style because it's kind of ugly, but the commission can do as they wish. A dormer is, a window that kind of pokes out. You see that a lot on older homes with what are called a story and a half. Where they have kind of a pitched roof and they have kind of an attic-ish space that doesn't have a full height all the way through, right? It's full height in the middle and then it like slopes down. So a dormer would be that window that would poke out from that. So just to, kind of give you guys some, what those different terms mean. And then I did some digging of other jurisdictions. There are lots and lots of jurisdictions that do small lot development and require design elements. And there's lots of places that have like a whole design committee. You have to go in front of the design committee to have everything reviewed, which I think that's a little much, but. And so I pulled some things that I just thought were interesting and might be things that the commission might consider instead of what staff has presented. These are things that other jurisdictions are currently using. Some of them are similar to things that have been presented by staff in the draft. Some of them are different. Just some other ideas that I have found that are being used out there. So one is primary building entrances, that's supposed to say entrances, but okay, are clearly identifiable and visible from the street. So for example, that would preclude this kind of development where there isn't your doors on the side, right? So that could be something that you think is important, that it's important to have the front of the house be the front of the house, and that's where your front door is, right? Where lots front on a public street, the house shall have doors and windows which face the street and a distinct entry feature. So that could be a porch, that could just be a covering over the door, but that your door and a front window would be a major feature, again, not having that tucked around door situation. The driveway and garage are secondary to the livable portions. That kind of follows that same idea that's currently in the code, where it would be the primary, so you would want it to be or the larger percentage would be your house rather than your garage. That one is that one is pretty vague, so the commission could choose to put more definitive language in there that, you could change the percentage, you could, do something else that was like, it has to have this. For homes with front loading garages, no more than 40% of a home's facade facing the street is devoted to a garage. Different places had different things about this, because you can see the next one says living space equal to at least 50% of the garage facade shall be flush with or projected forward of the garage. So there are different jurisdictions are doing that whole plane thing in different ways. So you could keep it the way it is, you could change it, you could add to it, make it go away altogether. Something for the commission to consider. Duplexes or attached homes must be designed to architecturally blend in with the surrounding single-family dwellings. I saw that one, and unfortunately, I could not steal the photos from that particular design guide. But it had, similar to what Dan had said, the really kind of flat-fronted places, and then it would be those in the middle of like very traditional single-family dwellings that look nothing like them. So again, that one is a little vague. It is something that is being utilized somewhere else. I thought it might be interesting to the commission. And then one that we really did kind of like, just because in areas of the orchards, especially where this style is and where this style is, they all look the same. And it's very difficult to figure out which one's which. And the letters and numbers are not very big. I deliver Meals on Wheels up there, and
Finding the right.
yes,
address.
there are so many that look like this. You'd be really, really careful to find the right one. So I found this one from a jurisdiction that says small lot home shall, no, not that one. Oh yes, sorry. Small lot home shall be unique in design, so there is variety between smaller homes within a subdivision. So if your small lot development subdivision contains more than 6 small lot homes in a single row, there shall be at least 2 variations in building design so that they look different. And then if you were doing a subdivision of 20 or more, then you would have variations in building design, at least 3 variations in your building design. So I found that one to be kind of interesting, but again, purview of the commission, whether you would like to add things, subtract things, wipe the whole thing together, take it as it is.
Back to number 9 real quick, Katie. The little photo.
This one.
Yeah. Getting visuals of some of your.
Any questions about what I've shown you?
Madam Chair, can you hear me?
Yeah, knock it out. What do you want?
Okay, it was mentioned by Joel, I believe, that they had a number 9 that they were thinking about adding onto this list. I was wondering what that is.
Yes, hold on, I gotta scroll. So it's this one, a common wall for attached homes is required to be the dwelling space and not the garage space. So you would have,
Separate the garages.
you would not,
Right.
you would not have, you would have this look
Uh-huh.
rather than this look. So that would be an additional item that could be added to that list.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I would love to get rid of number 7. With the all homes shall have a minimum of 1 dormer as an option. In today's modern building,
Dormers cost more.
Well,
to
and,
add.
and in today's modern building, it's an architectural detail that you're not going to see in a. Oh God, what's the way to put this without sounding insulting? A lower budget house. Dormers or something, because of the cost, you're generally going to be looking at a higher end home that's going to be incorporating dormers on a regular basis.
So I'm opposed to dormers just for the sake of a dormer. On the other hand.
Yeah.
On
But
a few of the pictures where you have the garage. Like that, the Magnolia where the two garages are together and you've got. What essentially qualifies as a different roof line and then the shed roof line in front of it. Whereas if you took. Them separate so that the roof line went over not only the garage, but the front of the house, you'd get your porch and it would clearly designate separate units.
The list of things that you found, I really do like that last one that you read, where there has
The
to be some
subdivision one?
design changes throughout the subdivision, so it just doesn't look just cookie cutter, cookie cutter, cookie cutter, cookie cutter, cookie cutter. I think having 2 or 3 design changes, a little bit of depth and adaptation. I would rather see that as an option for number 7 over a dormer.
So-
Because dormers are already addressed if you're doing a mansard roof line, which I agree is, but
So can I ask the question before, or maybe it's a process thing, but before we get into the individual changes, I don't mean to steal your thunder, Madam Chairwoman, but do we want to we can get into the individual ones that we want to do, but I'm thinking before
do
we
wanna
do
make
that,
any changes?
do we want to go with, do we want to basically nix it as is?
Nix, it being.
You wanna make all the design standards go away.
Yeah, go away.
Oh,
Because that is pretty much one option that we've been presented, minus a couple changes that he agrees with.
I think.
Little itty bitty stuff just for the having to make it to where it's not cookie cutter.
Yeah, I think that there's some merit on both sides, to be perfectly honest. I don't think that annihilating all design choices is an answer. I like the idea that you're giving them a buffet of choices and that they're getting a larger array of which ones because my thought is if you're doing a PUD and a PUD comes in where they're just, it's a, a slap and tickle on both sides, then they get to negotiate. Give and take, if we want to be a little more appropriate. So I like the idea that a small lot, although yes, Joel, you're correct, it is choice. But there are a lot of individuals, like one of my neighbors, I wish to God they would have thought of that because they don't like yard work. So why buy a place with a yard? So I like the options and some of the more flat-faced ones that we were shown are, and God forgive me if you happen to be one of the developers that built them, but ugly. They're ugly. And I would take a Magnolia Street or whatever those were over and above, so that, obviously appeal matters to some people and just sheer get it done and put it there matters to others. Marketability, I think somebody who's already done 300 developments or 300 builds within a community might have an idea of what is,
What's sellable?
well, anything's sellable if you price it right.
Well,
But
yeah, there's that, but I think that,
anyway, so no, I don't think we should nix all design ideas. I really like the buffet style.
I agree with
And-
you, I'm not arguing,
Yeah,
so.
and I believe that adding more is certainly an option. I think that we could, expanding it, window boxes, valid point. If a buyer comes in and buys one of their homes and it's theirs and they think the window box is the stupidest thing ever because nobody ever plants anything in it, they're gonna take it down. So that's gone already.
Yeah.
So, talking about accoutrements.
Madam Chairman,
Yeah,
in my mind, I would like I don't mind if the dormer's left in because it gives one more option in that buffet list that you're talking about, but I'd like to see the number 9 that they asked about and also a number 10, the design change within the subdivision.
So right here, we have to essentially decide whether we were willing to initiate amendment.
No, it's been
Council
initiated.
already did.
We already did
We already
it.
Council
So
initiated.
council initiated, go council. But
We're just.
the details,
Yeah, so you
Are
guys are
still on
deciding
the
on the
board.
details.
That's what,
Yep.
yep,
and we don't have to decide on those tonight?
no,
Thank you.
Workshop.
to introduce you to the idea.
I like the idea. I think that there's room for improvement.
Yeah, so what we're looking for from you tonight is direction
On those
on
improvements.
what you want the next draft that we come back to you
Okay.
with is,
Okay.
should look like.
Okay, well, my personal opinion is that I don't like the recessed garage, to be perfectly honest. I think that we have a lot of brand new homes in areas around here, and I'm thinking specifically, it's not Pheasant, Fairview, Fairwater. Out past the school, the high school, out that way. East, where a lot of the homes are the rear approach homes with the garages in the back.
Oh, okay.
Canyon Crest.
Thank you. Well, it's one of them. Canyons, pheasants, something. Birds.
Topography.
But there's a lot of the homes, and I'm thinking specifically of a development up in Moscow towards the Humane Society where they put in these craftsman-esque type structures, and there's 3 different colors or 3 different front layouts. And it's a beautiful area that inevitably is populated all the time. And same thing with, I think, out of Bristol.
In very high demand.
Yeah, they are. And so I think that there are ways that we could. I love the little tiny cottages over that direction. So I think that there's room for a lot of variety. But I do like not the barracks. I do like the switch up. So I think that I would like to see recessing the garage could be a choice, but I don't think it should be a mandate.
That's what
No,
that
but
draft
that's what
is.
that
Yeah,
does, is
yeah.
it gives
So-
more.
No, I'm agreeing. I'm
Right.
agreeing.
Yeah, so I mean, this reads like essentially an à la carte menu. So to me, the more things you throw on here, and I'm not just saying do it willy-nilly, have reasons to do it.
Yeah.
But the more you throw on here, if you're not saying there's 12 on this list and now you're mandating the developer has to meet 8, it's still 5, they have even more of an
Yeah.
ability to, and leeway to actually meet the standards.
Yeah,
That's kind of the way I'm looking at it.
yeah.
That's
So,
what I feel like.
yeah, and I am opposed to just taking them out fully.
Right,
So
There's a
agree.
lot of reasons and rationale why maybe no trees.
So if we were able to upsize it to like the 10, like we're
Mhm.
talking about, and they did 5 of the 10, the only other one that I think needs to be trimmed is number 2. And like we said, it's those design elements of things like a bay window or a window box. I think having a minimum of 3 of the, I think one of the key things, I like the idea of it having a covered porch. I think that the covered porch creates, more of that home feel
And neighborhood feel.
and that neighborhood feel and kind of a pride of ownership type of a thing. But I think requiring harnesses and brackets and blah, 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 those are, to me, I guess I look at it, a covered porch is a functional item. All the rest of that is decoration.
So the
Yes.
differentiation is, what I'm hearing is that we should take away the ones that are not actual architectural features, the ones that are like bolt on.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
It might be important to clarify what one is, like he discussed, like color change, what does that mean? Does that mean that the facade of the,
Typically, the statutes in the city code is arranged in plain language, so unless otherwise defined, a color change means a change in the color.
So like white to
Yeah.
black.
Well, and to
That
me,
doesn't have
it
to be
just,
That extreme.
to me,
Well,
I
I know,
just
I'm
look
just
at it in
thinking
terms of the
something
house is one
obvious.
color, the trim is another color.
I mean, even if
Hence
it's
So
a
your
that,
change,
color
that should
change.
meet the
we
criteria.
would,
Yeah.
yeah, no, we would accept it even if it was just a change in shade of the same color.
Yeah. But that's what I'm picturing is here's your base color,
Yeah.
here's your trim.
Yeah.
That's your color
Yeah,
change.
yeah,
You know,
that works too.
And honestly,
There
for
are
me,
different
I'm
ways to
also
achieve
looking
it.
at that in terms of texture change. So, you know, if you've got, like you said, you know, you've got lap siding and then you go to a batten board. Now, all of a sudden, in my mind, I see that as a texture change because you're going from horizontal to vertical. And that it's, to me, I look at it in terms of if I were looking at it, you know, as a layperson going along, it's that directionality change even creates just that visual, so it's not flat. When I picture flat houses, I just think of things like stucco.
Tell us how you really feel, Mo.
Minus the shrubbery.
Well, and so that brings me to the trees. I understand the argument about the one tree or the planting, but we expect specific plantings literally across the boards in almost every other development. And so if we can't have trees because of lines, can we have a dividing shrub line?
Shrub.
Yeah, but that's just an
Or
element. If they meet
plantings.
5 of the above and the
Yeah.
homeowner wants to add additional, I mean, I look at it in terms of, as somebody who only has shrubbery in my front yard and a few planter beds, I'd rather have my trees in my backyard. And I really wish my neighbors would feel the same way because since I don't have trees in my front yard, I still end up with all of their leaves.
Yeah, but you see, if you plant it, your leaves can land in there. So, yeah,
my shrubbery
okay,
mix,
okay,
so-
so I do like it. I think the discussion about anything that's removable, that's just an aftermarket.
Yeah, I agree.
piece of
I think
fluff.
so.
We've already got them crossed off.
Yeah, I love that.
Was there anything else you guys wanted to add to the list?
So we did the wall space, not garage,
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
Okay,
the
that
wall-
was
the
number
wall-
one.
Variety per number of
and then
units.
variety per number. Yep,
So
the
we've got a
design
list of
changes.
10.
I think
Then the
that's.
only question is, do you want to keep the minimum number at 5?
Or, oh, for the differentiation.
No, for the
For how many?
for the
items?
shopping list.
Design options, yeah, the buffet list.
I think 5 is good.
Okay.
Well, especially if we have 10 options to choose from.
I just think that in a PUD, if you can come in with a,
Laundry list, yeah.
yeah,
And that's your option. If you can't manage 5 out of 10, PUD it. An arm
Small lot
wrestle,
development.
yeah. But, you know,
Instead
and
of
come in
big-
and arm wrestle with y'all.
PUD's got more arm wrestling to do.
Much more.
Yeah.
With your analogy, you don't want to do it, then
Yeah,
you don't do.
Then
small
don't do
lot.
small up. Yeah, exactly. Like you said, it's a choice.
Yep.
And I think if we give you a 10 things on a laundry
Now you're
list,
getting choices within your choice.
Yeah,
yeah, 5 out of 10, 50%.
I mean, it's being made a lot more flexible than it currently is now.
Reflexive.
Yeah.
We're flexible and sensitive.
Well, I consider it flexible within standards.
Yeah.
You still have standards, but now you have more of an ability to reach the standards.
Yeah.
all right, let's not celebrate too much, kids.
So is
We're still
there-
Gonna piss people off.
Is there a consensus then to strike the bolt-on features from the,
Yes.
and then add numbers 9 and 10 that we talked about? And then do you want any other changes made, or do you want to just schedule that for hearing? What would you like to do? Would you like to come back?
I would like to
consider it again?
review a draft.
Okay.
Would that be a problem? Is it
Nope.
Okay,
We
Not at
review.
all.
I agree.
I agree.
just to clarify all the rambling.
Okay.
Just so we can read it and know what it looks like.
All right, I'm offline still. That's the story of my life. Okay,
No actions needed on this.
no, we don't have to make a motion.
Nope.
All right, well, then we're not making, somebody put it in there.
Because until we see it written out,
It's already been
then after
initiated,
that, we
though.
make a motion,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, we've been usurped by city council. All right, so moving forward, staff commission communications.
So the next regular meeting is on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Traditionally, the commission has canceled that meeting because they have not been able to confirm quorum.
I would be able to be here, but.
Do you want to cancel it?
So do you wanna cancel it or?
Well,
You
I
do?
want to cancel.
yeah, I mean, I can make it, but
All right.
I figure.
Do we make a motion for that? Do we need a
No.
motion?
Oh, so
No?
that,
Never mind
so
then.
the
If
27th.
it's
We're not
if
having
it's a
one.
general agreement, then that's what we'll do.
We're fine.
So your next meeting will be December 11th, and we've got agenda items for you.
And then just to keep in the back of your mind, the December 11th meeting might be fuller than normal.
Yep,
So bring a
Because
dinner.
we're
To bring it in.
compressing, yeah, we're
Because we'll be-
compressing
we're doing some
things into
compression.
fewer meetings.
Because the second meeting in December is
Was off.
on Christmas, so.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Canceling that.
Okay.
So we apologize for the extra workload.
That makes sense. It's the holidays.
That's kind of the way she kind of got.
And the ball needs to continue rolling.
Sure, and isn't Christmas Day is on the fourth Wednesday of December,
Yes,
right?
it is
Yeah.
Christmas Day.
Okay.
Yep.
The weird day for Christmas to fall
I
on.
think that's all we got for communications.
Bring beverages and snacks.
Yeah.
Okay, well, then we've done all of that. I am open to a motion to adjourn.
I will make that motion, Madam Chair.
I will second.
All right, motion seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Adios.
Mooches and kisses, Kathy.